keynote speaker today. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself? So it was your birthday yesterday and you just turned 18.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Jayden Foytlin. I'm now, I was about to say 17, I am now 18. My birthday was yesterday. I've been an activist since I was 12 years old. I'm from Rain, Louisiana, which is in the deep south. I have grown up in climate disaster my whole life. I have witnessed it firsthand. I am a climate disaster survivor twice. I have survived 2 floods that happened in my own home, up to a half a foot of water to bigger. I've been in the activist scene since I was 11, or at least I first got involved whenever I was 6, because that's when the BP oil spill had happened, and I don't know what year. But I've been affected by climate change my whole life, living in the South along with a whole bunch of other kids around my age, and I have experienced firsthand like climate anxiety, and I've been like working towards it my whole life on how to get better. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with everyone today.
Me too. So would you say that it was the experience of having gone through the 2 climate disasters that you went through that pushed you to become an activist?
I was already an activist before that had happened, but that had really pushed me because I had seen that it was already always affecting me, but I had seen how it was affecting my little brothers and how it was affecting my younger siblings and how it was affecting my community. Because at first it did always affect me, but it never got as bad as flooding. It never got so bad. I remember there was in Louisiana, there's this thing called the floodplain, on where it's more likely to flood. And my town, Rain, was never part of that. I was never supposed to be flooded out. It was because of coastal erosion that had happened. And that's what really kickstarted me and what really made me like, all right, this is my community. And the only one that can stop this, or the only one that can fix what's happening, is my community itself. So I decided to help. And I decided, if there's not that many youth activists in my town, I'm at least gonna start. I'm at least gonna be like a voice at first, so I can hopefully inspire other people that are in the same situation as me, like in a poor community that's been really affected by the fossil fuel industry. My main thing that got me into activism was I want to influence other kids like me that had to grow up around refineries and that had to grow up around rigs. That's really what kickstarted me.
Do you think it's fair that it's left to people like you, children like you, when it happened, that are being affected by it more than maybe like people who don't really experience it that much, but you are the ones who are having to fight more, fight back, and do the activism, do the work? How do you feel about that?
Everyone is definitely affected by climate change and is affected by climate anxiety, but I have never seen someone be more affected by climate anxiety than another kid my age or another person around my age, because we are the ones that we didn't make this. There's no kid in the oil industry. Like, we weren't the one that put this upon ourselves, that put this dread upon ourselves, but we are the ones that are dealing with it. I feel like most kids in my area back in Louisiana, even if they didn't realize that it was climate anxiety, the things they were telling me was that, like, they didn't connect it to climate change, but having to worry about, oh, I can't go outside today because this refinery is burning gas outside and it's just too bad. That is climate anxiety. You are stopping what you are doing and not having fun like how you usually would because of your environment. And especially in places like Louisiana or in the deep south, there's a lot of poor communities and there's a lot of Black and brown communities. And because my town, Rain, is a majority Black, most people don't most fossil fuel industries choose to put their stuff there because it's a lower income community. They don't want it. There's been this whole campaign in Louisiana of not in my backyard. It's basically of richer people being like, I don't want a pipeline in my backyard, so let's put it to the other communities. Let's put it to the poorer communities, like they can handle that. That's another symptom of climate anxiety, or not symptom, but intersectionality.
Yeah, it definitely ties in
because
with racial injustice there, doesn't it?
Yeah, because of the environmental racism, it also creates my communities like mine to be worse than other communities. Like Baton Rouge is a really big city. It's the capital of Louisiana, and it's really bad. It probably has as much it's a really big city, but it probably has as much refineries as my town, Rain, does, because they don't care about us. The fossil fuel industry doesn't care about us. Most families in Rain, their fathers, their uncles, their big brothers, they go into the oil industry immediately after high school because Louisiana is so oil dependent. Like my whole life, I have been surrounded by this. I have seen other kids my age. I'm also part of this lawsuit, actually, suing the government with a whole bunch of 20 other youth that have been experiencing like environmental stuff, and they can all tell you that they suffer from like climate anxiety. It's not just a made up thing. It's something that actually happens, especially to poor and Black people, poor brown and Black people that are being targeted by the fossil fuel industry. I feel like environmental racism has a lot to do with climate anxiety. It's one of the main enablers. Like I feel like if we did something about that, then it's another way that we can combat that. Because who do you think is being mostly affected by climate anxiety? It's the people with refineries in their backyard.
So I know you come from an Indigenous background, so how would you say the Indigenous community is adversely affected?
By I can actually speak on that because I am Navajo. My mother is Navajo, my father is Cajun, from Louisiana. With the lawsuit, there's this one girl, another youth named Jamie. She is Navajo and she's on the Navajo reservation, and she has to deal with the consequences of drought because they have been taking. Another thing that the fossil fuel industry likes to do is they like to take water from reservations and other native areas and take it from the people in that community. And so she's been facing a lot of climate anxiety because there's been a drought. The Navajo reservation is in Arizona. Arizona is really hot. She had her horses die. Like her horses had died from dehydration because of the fossil fuel industries taking water from her home to put into Texas or give to other like pipeline companies and stuff like that. And so one of the main problems, or one of the main things that I see like the fossil fuel industry affecting Native communities is taking resources from Native communities and really like they already pushed us into reservations and gave us limited resources, but now they're taking those resources away. So not only are they facing like extreme climate disasters like drought, they're also getting the limited like resources they do have taken away from them.
And as a community, do you feel like you have any say, any voice, and getting your resources back, or just even like your quality of life and stuff has been affected?
I think mostly what's just been happening is a lot of mutual aid. I do feel like Natives, or especially the Navajo Nation, has been fighting for this for years. We've been fighting for our right to water for years. Like it's not just something that's recently happened. When that story of her horses dying from dehydration, that happened whenever she was 13, and she's older than me now. She's like, if I had to guess, probably 20. So that was a while ago. We've been fighting this for a second. That just boils down to colonization and how like we just won't get heard. We won't get heard from that. We really just need mutual aid, and we need other communities to help us, because it seems like the government isn't trying too hard with that.
Yeah. So where would you say you're getting like most of your support from in your activism with the lawsuit as well? Is it from other people your age? Do you have, what about the other generations? Do you feel like their climate anxiety is like the same?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again? You had froze.
So I'm just saying, where do you get most of your support from when you're doing activism work and like with the lawsuit? So is it mainly like young people that are involved? And what about like other generations?
I feel like my main support comes from other youth. Like I usually try to work with other youth most of the time, and I try to work with Our Climate Voices and Youth Speak Of and other youth-based organizations. I feel like most of my support and most of the support I give out to people is for youth. And there are adults that support, because of course it's as a youth, it's kind of hard to get your voice out there without adults, because a lot of people believe that as a youth, you don't know what you're thinking about or what you're talking about just because you are younger. Like I always like to say, just because I'm not underage, but just because I was underage, or just because I'm not 25, or just because I'm not like in college yet, doesn't discredit science. Like just because I am younger than you doesn't mean that I'm not speaking like scientific facts. It kind of sucks, because I wish people, like my main thing is that I wish people would take kids more seriously. I wish I didn't have to seek help from adults, and I wish that my support wouldn't have to be from them. Luckily, most of my support I have is from other youth organizations. But when I first started out, it really was like they would not listen to you as a kid, and they would only listen to you if an adult was speaking for you.
Do you think older generations feel like it's not their problem and are just leaving it to young people because it's going to be, we're going to be the generation that needs to deal with it soon, so it's just our problem now? How do you feel about that?
Sometimes like it really does feel like that. I know generally deep down, I don't think the older generation wants to hurt the younger generation. I think it's just what's happening. And sometimes, or most of the time, they are just refusing to listen to us. I don't think that, I do think that some of it is intentional. I do hope that they would listen to us more, and I do hope that we can actually have conversations about it. And I hope that we can organize more as youth and not have to depend on older people so much. I wish to not have to worry, or not have to even like think about them.
Yeah.
Like I hope we get to that point where we got it.
Yeah, me too. What about your time in education? Was there much education about climate justice, climate change? Because living in an area where you've definitely been affected by it, what about in your school? Were you taught like how to deal with it?
Being in Southwest Louisiana, the idea of a teacher even acknowledging climate change is crazy. People where I live see us talking about climate change as us directly going against the families working in fossil fuel industries. So it's very hard to talk about. Like everybody in Louisiana, or most of the people in my community they know the reason why coastal erosion is happening, but it's so taboo to talk about. I couldn't even imagine talking about it in school, like unless it was an environmental class. I have talked about just coastal erosion, and I've learned about that in school, but they never tie it to fossil fuel industry and global warming and why that's the cause. They always connect it to something else, like a natural coastal erosion, when it's not natural. This is happening because of climate change.
Yes, so you said about other kids not kind of tying that together as well. So how did you then like educate yourself, and how did you like learn about it all yourself, come to that conclusion? Did you just do your own research?
So luckily, I mean, for this part, not luckily, because I had grown up into it, I was exposed to it as a pretty young age. But for the luckily part, by that I mean my mom was a photographer around the time that BP oil spill had happened, and I remember she had went down to the Gulf of Mexico, and she had taken photos of like what had happened with all the oil at the beaches and all the pelicans covered in oil and all that. And I remember after she had taken the photo, she had came home. I was around 6 at the time. She had came home, and she didn't show me the thing, but she had put down the photo book, and I had looked through the book. And I saw like the pelican is the Louisiana state bird. And I saw what the BP oil spill had did to my ecosystem, to the wetlands. Like I had saw the pelican, like I remember seeing it covered in oil, and I remember asking my mom if it was alive, and she said no, that it had died because of it being like smothered in oil. And I think really that's what kind of got me into it, or like my first whatever was seeing what it did to my community and seeing the effects that oil had, even just not from a climate change point of view, but just the damages of oil stuff leaks all the time. Oil spills happen in the Gulf of Mexico all the time. A lot of times they go unreported, and a lot of times, like I think even now, the BP oil spill, not all of the oil is gone. So I had saw what happened to my community, and I remember learning more about it. I remember I had asked my mom, I was like, hey, can I get some science books? Like, can I get some environmental science books? Obviously not at 6 because I could barely read, but whenever I was like 12, I remember asking her that. And I had just like, I did kind of do my own independent like studying on it. Like I learned more about it, and I learned what was happening to the wetlands of Louisiana.
Yeah, to me that's crazy that living in that community, like teachers or schools don't want to talk about it. But anyway, we're going to go to questions from the audience. So if you just, anybody who has a question, you can just put it in the chat box and we can ask Jayden. So Sabina is asking, have you had any international support?
Honestly, no, I have not. I haven't had any international support. All support that I have had has only ever been local to like Louisiana.
Yeah, so not even out with Louisiana, you've not had much support?
The only other places I've had is like some people from the West Coast have supported me. Like it's mostly just all of my whatever has been in the South recently.
So what would you then say to the international community?
If y'all ever want to support, I think just really just finding out, like I could also give out some information afterwards so we can talk more about it after, but I can definitely get y'all like involved. Like if y'all want to help with what's going on in Louisiana with all this stuff, I can definitely connect y'all.
That would be amazing. Fiona is asking, do parents of your fellow activists support or get involved in your activism?
Wait,
Do parents of your fellow activists support or get involved in your activism?
Well, for my parents definitely support my activism. I have had adults not support me, and I've had friends like not been allowed to talk to me anymore. Like I had this one time friend, I had this friend, Madison, who was no longer allowed to talk to me because her mom had found out about the activism that I was doing. And her mom and her dad both work on with the oil companies. So of course they felt like that was me going against them personally. So they kind of made it to where, or they definitely made it to where we couldn't be friends anymore. But I don't really have any problems with like adults mostly. I mean, with kids mostly. I've never had another fellow like activist like give me any
That's a
problems.
shame
It's
to have
only
to
ever
lose a
been
friendship. That's horrible to have to
yeah.
lose a
It's
friendship over that.
I had that was when I was 13 too.
Oh. Catherine is asking, how did you make contact with the other plaintiffs for your court case?
So for the court case, I was just I was on a trip with my mom in Florida because again my mom was a photographer, so she was taking photos of what happened in Hurricane Katrina. Like that was way before I was born, but the after effects that was still happening. And I remember I had met this lawyer, Elizabeth Brown, who had asked me, I was there, I forgot, I think I was 11 at the time. She had asked me if I wanted to be a part of the lawsuit or the court case with all the other people. So I didn't meet them. They kind of, I just found them.
Amazing. Jennifer's asking, do you feel that there's fetishization of Native people in the climate conversation?
Yes, I think to say that there isn't fetishization of Native people in the climate conversation would be a stretch. There is definitely fetishization, and I have experience firsthand. I've had people invite me to speak, and the main reason why I'm only there is for me to talk about my identity, and it really feels like I'm more of a token rather than like talking about my experiences. But I like situations like this where I can actually talk to people, but sometimes like I cannot lie and say that that does not happen. Like there definitely is a fetishization of Native people in the conversation, and using us a lot. Like there's been a lot of use of Native people just to get a point across that has nothing to do with us.
Marina is asking, what do you think is the best way to get young people involved who might feel that climate change isn't relevant to them?
I think the best thing is knowing or understanding that climate change doesn't have to be relevant to you because it's always affecting somebody else. If it's not affecting you, then it's affecting this other person. So just because it might not be happening in your community, if you want to get out there and if you want to start working on that, you have to find other communities. When it comes to activism or stuff like this, you really have to put in your own work of finding these communities. You can't just Google search whatever. Like it's best to like actually like go to these communities.
So
what if I'm trying to read these?
No worries.
But yeah, I think the best way for young people to get involved when they might not feel like it's relevant to them is just understanding that mutual aid is just as important as helping things in your own community.
And Alan is asking, taking on US government must be daunting. How is this funded and what outcome are you seeking?
So luckily for that, I am not on the legal team. So when it comes to the funding, that is out of my hands. I'm just one of the plaintiffs on the case. But with the outcome, like I think what you mean is like what we're expecting to come out of this case. We are not suing for money. That's like a really big like misconception. People think like, oh, they're just like a whole bunch of kids that just want money from the government. We are not and never have been suing for money. We've just been mainly my whole point of being in this case was to show the government and like government officials that youth do care about the environment, and showing that youth from different communities are being affected, and that it is a general worry. And that seems to be like the the goal outcome is mostly just, with most of the plaintiffs, is just getting the courts to understand that, or the government to understand that this is a legitimate worry, and a whole bunch of kids, it's not just kids in the city, like these are kids from small towns that are being affected. Like we are showing the government, like we are coming to their face to show them that people are getting affected.
Yeah. One last question we'll take from the audience. So Diana asks, what would be your key message for climate leaders coming to COP this year that perhaps young people here could get behind and amplify your voices?
That's a hard one. What would be your key message for climate leaders coming to COP this year that perhaps young people here could get behind and amplify your voice? With that, like, I'm trying to understand that question more.
No worries.
I think just a key message is that goes for anything, and that I would love to like talk about with COP is at COP is just generally every youth can tell you this is the one thing that we want people to talk about, is we don't want people to just amplify our voices. We want to be heard. We want youth to be in spaces. And I understand you're talking about like climate leaders and whatever that can like get behind youth voices, but instead of getting behind youth voices, let's amplify their voice. Let's not use your voice to amplify yours. Let's get more youth in those spaces. I think a key message would just be actually listen to the youth and actually hear what we have to say, and not just in a way of talking about climate anxiety and just, oh yeah, I'm scared that this is going to happen. Actually talk to us about like what we have experienced and what we are going through in our communities. The only key message, or the main key message that I would have to say is like really shows that you care about youth. That's really what we need right now, is that you care about what's going to happen.
Definitely think it's important for climate leaders to listen to the voices that are already there and just listen and take on that change. So what, like, talking about like what your outcome you're seeking of the lawsuit and everything, like how do you see things moving forward basically? What's like, do you have any hope for the future? If so, like how do you think change is going to come about?
With the lawsuit?
With the lawsuit and just with climate justice in general as well.
I do have hope, honestly. I don't want to make it sound like the whole climate change fight is just despair, because again, this is going from despair to hope. I think there definitely is hope, and I can see it even when I talk to people around my age. Like people or my generation has been known as a really strong generation, and that we're like really banding together, that we're really standing up more, and we're really more like a socially active generation. And so I do have hope. I have a lot of hope. When I go to spaces and when I hear other youth activists like speaking, I have a lot of hope. Even when I hear the adults and how they have supported youth, like I think there's a lot of hope. And I don't want to leave this conversation just talking about the bad of it, because there's so much that we can do, and there's so much that we have done that has worked. And with all the successes that we had in the past, we can have more in the future. With the lawsuit, as of right now, we're trying to they had denied it. We had gone to court multiple times, and they had denied it this time, saying that they said that our court case has standing, like it has standing, and we should go to court for it, but we should just do it from a different branch, because I think we were doing from the, I don't remember, but they were just saying that we should do it a different way. And so it seems like the courts are willing to listen, and it seems like the government is willing to listen. And if they're even acting like they're willing to listen, then I'm about to talk their ear off, and I'm not going to shut up, because this is like the time frame where I get them to listen to me, and they're gonna hear everything I have to say, or they're gonna hear everything everyone has to say.
Definitely. And I think them saying this is not the right way and stuff, they're probably trying to discourage you. And yeah, I think that's it. But I think that means that it's working, you are getting through to them.
Yeah.
I would say so. I wanted to talk a bit about social media. Do you use social media for any of your climate activism? Do you find out information from there? Do you find it useful to inform other people?
So if anyone's looking for any information on the lawsuit, you can go to Instagram or Facebook and stuff like that at ourchildrenstrust.org, or just use VGov and stuff like that. But for me personally, I try to stay off of social media as much as possible. I try to do more like on the ground work. Y'all can definitely reach me if y'all want to talk about anything at Jayden Foytlin, which is my name actually, on Instagram. If anyone wants to talk about anything, if y'all want to talk further on this topic, or if y'all want to talk other stuff, I have Instagram and Facebook, and I can also give out my email.
Do you think that there's been more awareness with like social media use being increased? Because obviously you can talk to people more easily now, like at other sides of the planet, and spread more awareness like that. Do you think that it's been a useful tool?
I think social media is a really useful tool when it comes to activism. I think that it definitely shouldn't be your only source of activism, or it shouldn't be your only source of information output. But I think like social media and online and like online timelines like that have been really beneficial when it comes to like spreading awareness for other stuff, because there'll be like stuff that I didn't even know about, like stuff that I didn't hear about, and then I'll find out about it online, and then I'll do my own research on it. And I think it's really good that we have that connection to where we can like really talk about what we need to, and we don't have to be in certain spaces anymore. Like anybody that has a phone or has access to the internet can access that. And I think that's an amazing tool. I think social media is a really useful tool when it comes to this.
Definitely, I think so too. So what has been your biggest challenge just doing all of this? Like personally, what's been your biggest challenge throughout your time of being an activist and experiencing what you have experienced?
I think honestly, my biggest challenge has just been the backlash from my community. Because I do live in a really oil dependent state. Like before I was an activist, my own father was a working offshore. So of course, being I'm not for the fossil fuel industry or any type of energy use like that. And because I was I was really out there about that, and I was really like, everyone knew I was an activist in my community. Like after the lawsuit happened, there was a thing that happened in Rain about how they talked about it, and then it just made it kind of made me being in my own hometown unsafe, because some people just didn't like what I was doing. One time somebody had even, I don't know if this is much, and probably I'm gonna say this is like a trigger warning. One time somebody had even threatened my mom with a knife because of the activism that I was doing and the activism that my mom does. I have been in my own room when it was like in the middle of the night, and someone had shined a flashlight through my room trying to like see where we were at. I've been in like physical danger because of the activism I have done. And I think that's the only thing that's ever been off-putting, because I'm pretty like strong-minded. I'm pretty strong-minded, but that was the only thing that's ever like made me even think about quitting activism. And with the Low Law camp, that was there was a pipeline, the Bayou Bridge pipeline was going to be put 5-7 miles away from my house in a town called, well, it was going to go through all of South Louisiana, but it was going through a nearby town called Indian Bayou. And it was like only 5 miles away from my house, and that was probably one of the most dangerous fights that I have ever been in. That was one of the most I have never had as much death threats. I've never had as much like physical threats in front of, like, it's different when it's someone texting me that they don't hate that, I mean, that they hate me, I don't care. But when someone's like physically in front of you talking about how they just want to like put an end to it because they hate what you're doing,
That's terrifying.
it was really hard. That was the only backlash that I had got.
Yeah, and then that would have discouraged you from continuing, I suppose. So how did you find like the motivation to like continue doing your activism and like try to ignore that as best you can? I'm guessing like you clearly are very passionate for an amazing reason, and is that what's getting you through?
Yeah, honestly, what's getting me through is I do have a passion for this, and I generally activism has been my life because suffering from climate disaster was my life before activism. So sorry, I'm getting caught up on the backlash part. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Bennett's actually said, would you mind talking a bit about sorry if I pronounce this wrong, the Les La Vie camp?
Oh yeah, so the Loe La Vie camp is a camp that my mom had started, and my mom and a group of other people had started as a protest or like a campaign against the Bayou Bridge pipeline. So the camp itself was a piece of land that the pipeline was going to be built on, because the people was originally going to sell it to the pipeline company, but my mom had bought it from the pipeline company. It was not that many acres, so it was really cheap. But it halted them building the Bayou Bridge pipeline. Because they did not have that piece of land anymore, and my mom had like owned it, they had to build around it. It didn't stop it from being built, but it put it to a halt. And because of it being put to a halt, we really did protest. We did really big protests. I mean, we did blockades. There was even we had people like activists putting their bodies on the line. Like we had people like coming out from all different places. Loe La Vie camp is now a food camp, and we are growing food for the Indian Bayou community, and we're growing like fruits and vegetables and stuff like that now, because the Bayou Bridge pipeline was put in. But at the time, before it was put in, it was just this counter protest, or not a counter protest, but a protest to the Bayou Bridge pipeline that me and my mom had been running.
That's amazing. How did the the food camp who started it, and how did that begin?
So my mom was the one that started it, just from doing some pretty just local organizing. Like she really just she worked with herself, really. She bought a plot of land not knowing exactly what was going to go down, knowing that she didn't want that pipeline company to have the property rights to it. So It was originally just started as like my mom, like it was just like a random act of rebellion that turned into a whole movement, or like a whole camp. And because I also forgot to mention, the Bayou Bridge pipeline is the tail end of the Dakota Access pipeline. It's from the exact same company. It's both a crude oil pipeline. for people that don't know, the Dakota Access Pipeline is the pipeline that they put through Standing Rock, the Standing Rock Reservation in South Dakota. I forgot what year that had popped off, but if I had to guess, it was 2017, where Energy Transfer Partners put a pipeline on an Indian reservation. So the Bayou Ridge pipeline is from the same company, and so they call it the tail end of the black snake because of the crude oil. And so we've just been it's been like this fight of, my mom has been fighting against the Dakota Access Pipeline, and now it came to our community. Like, it actually like came to Louisiana. It's the same company, same oil, same whatever being transferred through ours. And so we just created the Lois La Vie camp. Lois La Vie, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right because I'm only half Cajun. I've never spoken French in my life, but to my knowledge, Lois La Vie is French for water is life, which is a phrase that we had got from the Standing Rock campaign, kind of, because water is life was used for the Dakota Access Pipeline, but it was said in the Lakota language, Mini Wachoni. So it's basically like the same fight. We've been fighting the same people. Actually, let me not say that. It's not the same fight, but we've been fighting the same people in two different ways.
Yeah. Did your mum receive much support? Was it mainly from the community? Did she get any support from the council or anything?
We didn't get any like city community support, but we had got a lot of mutual aid. There was a lot of people. There was it was a camp, so there was always like, there was constantly people there. There was always people helping. We did actions. We purposely made them stop working for the day. Like we always had like a community going there. Like my mom always had her set of people. They're all activists, and they're all like, they were all in the activist world way before this, but they all came together because my mom had been in the activist scene. She's been an organizer for a while now. So it was like she already had her community, and she just like did a call out for people like, hey, we're fighting this pipeline in Louisiana. It's going to be set 5 miles away from my house. Like, who wants to help with this? And she had people that were like, I don't want to help with this. I don't want this in Louisiana. I don't want this anywhere at all. And so we just had a community, and we had our own like set community of people that were caring for Louisiana.
Yeah, I think community is so important. So we're going to have our last 10 minutes of question and answers from the audience again. So if you just put them in the chat again, and Jayden can answer them.
And sorry for any confusion with the questions.
No, you're doing great. I'm learning so much from you. I think that's so important as well, to always feel like you can learn from people that are younger than you.
Yeah. And allowing yourself to, a lot of times adults don't even allow themselves to learn. They're just like, no, you're younger than me. I'm not even gonna listen to it.
Okay. So are you able to tell us a bit about the range of emotions and experiences that have come about through the gathering at Standing Rock from both a young person, First Nation, and an activist perspective?
So personally, I was not like involved with Standing Rock because at that time it was a very intense time, and police were really pushing on people, and I have been around people who were a part of that, but I think I was around 14 at the time that was happening. So I was kind of separated from that because of how violently the police was acting towards First Nation people. So I don't have any like first person experiences with how things came about through the gathering of Standing Rock. But just from like, if I am understanding the question correctly, just from a First Nation point of view, hold up, I'm going back up to the question. some of the range of emotions that I had felt was just like anger and sadness, because I had saw what they were doing to. I am not Lakota. Let me also say that the Standing Rock Reservation is the Lakota people. I am Navajo, but just seeing how like other natives were treated and how that whole thing went down really I had experienced it, and I already know that our government doesn't care about the First Nation people, but seeing it happen on live television and happening to my aunties and uncles that I do know was very heartbreaking.
Yeah. So Mark is asking, are there any books or activists in other parts of the world that have inspired you and helped you to understand the bigger picture of global oppression and how it plays out in your communities?
So most of my experiences or most of my inspiration hasn't been from books. It wasn't until recently that I had really been getting my information from books or like actually seeking inspiration from that. The only activist that I would say that is not like in the United States that I had taken inspiration from is Zarna. I don't know if I'm saying her last name correctly, but I think it's Joshi or Joshi. She is a Middle Eastern activist who's like she's an environmental and gender abolitionist activist. She's like, I had met her whenever I was 14 at a climate action camp. She was just a very big inspiration. She was one of the first people that really connected environmental racism in my head, or she was the first one that really taught me about that. And she was the first one to be like, yeah, the reason that's happening in your community is because you are in a poor community. She was one of the people that really taught me what I know about class and other stuff like that. So she was a really big inspiration. If I can find her stuff, then I would definitely put it in the chat too.
That would be amazing. Maybe one day, would you ever write a book or anything like that?
I hope to. I hope whenever I'm like older, I get to write a book about youth activism and help. I hope I can be more of a helpful guide to other youth out there.
Yeah, I think you'd be amazing at that. I think that's all we have time for, but thank you so much. I've learned so much from you. Oh, there's another question you want to answer.
I saw this and I really wanted to answer this. Could you talk about wider environmental injustice in Louisiana and with Cancer Alley? Actually, that is a really good thing. I want to talk about that it was brought up. I want to talk about Cancer Alley. Cancer Alley is environmental racism is so apparent and so bad in Louisiana that there's literally a part of Southwest Louisiana that's called Cancer Alley. It's a part of towns like St. James and stuff like that. Which are majority, like St. James itself is a historically Black town. It's a majority, not even just majority, I think it's like generally just like a Black town. It's a really old town made up of like mostly just Black elders, and it has a lot of refineries. Even just when you go there, it smells so bad. And one of the main things with Cancer Alley, the main things with St. James that I have been doing is we've been trying to get a evacuation route for St. James, because there's so many refineries that there's risk of them blowing up. But because it's a poor Black community, the city has not worked to find a exit route or like a emergency route to leave. Like they are trapped in like around refinery after refinery. I'm not sure how many there is over there. I wish I knew that, but I know, like, even just when you go there, you see one left and right. It's awful. It's literally called Cancer Alley, and there's been multiple elders that have died there because of all the environmental racism, and nobody cares because it's a small Black community. Like, they're not getting, like, Baton Rouge isn't getting affected. No other whatever is getting affected. It's this poor Black community that is being affected, and they don't even have a way to leave if it does go down, like if it does blow up, which has a really big chance to. Cancer Alley has no evacuation route, and so it's this group of it's like this Black community that is just left to die, really, and it's so depressing when you go there. It's literally Cancer Alley.
That's awful. I think it's a good point.
I'm glad somebody said that in the comments.
Yeah, I would never have known about that. It's a good point how you said there's no emergency exit, because it should be an urgency, it should be an emergency that's being dealt with now.
Mm-hmm.
But yes.
I'm really glad that they had brought that up.
Yeah, actually. Definitely, me too. I'm glad you answered that. Okay, so we're going to break now, but thank you so much, Jayden. That has been amazing. And thanks for like being up at like 3 AM where you are as well.
Yeah, it's now 4. I'm about to go to bed. Thank you so much for having me.
Get some sleep. It was great talking to you.
It was great talking to you too.
Thanks. Bye.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to Anika. Thank you to Jayden. I think we can all see how much the climate crisis costs individuals emotionally. So individuals like Jayden. And we can see again that minority groups often pay the highest prices. And as Jayden said, even if you are not directly affected, somebody else is. So that was really powerful. Thank you again. Yeah, we are now going to a 10-minute break.